What is going on, guys? Owen Fortner back with you, recording the second podcast, going over some football topics. Hope you enjoyed the first one. If you caught that Sporkle video yesterday, photo finish at the end. Surprised that only about 30% of people were able to finish it, or 30% had completed it. So I don't know. That's pretty good outlook for me. So love to see it. Yeah, just want to cover some NFL topics. Got one college topic to start. We're going to talk a little bit of Florida State. Going to talk a little bit of NFL Cut Day, which was here today. Some takes on that. Talk a little bit of AFC East. Talk about some rookie quarterbacks. And then I'm going to end with my breakout star of the year, my second-year breakout. A guy who I think is going to take a big step, a big leap in a big way. First, a trivia question for you. Now, I'm not going to give you the answer. The answer will come later in the podcast at some point. You're going to find it. It'll just come in the flow of it. But here's the answer. See if you can get it when I bring it up. Which team last year had the least time of possession per game? Which team averaged the least amount of time of possession on offense per game? Be giving you the answer to that later. Just think about it. All right, I said I'd start with some college, and I'm going to keep my word. So Florida State played Georgia Tech this past weekend on Saturday in Dublin in the Irish. Heard when they landed on the runway, it was filled with Guinness bottles. That's what I heard, at least. I mean, it might not be true, but and Florida State loses on a game-winning field goal at Georgia Tech. The place is packed with that ugly red Florida State color, but they lose. They lose their opening game in front of everybody. An embarrassing topic for the Noles fans. And I want to take a little bit of a slam dunk on the Noles. I've been talking some crap about the Noles for past couple months, and I'm happy to kind of see this. Let's take a little victory lap here. So I don't know if you guys watched that game or not. Georgia Tech absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage against it. And this is a Florida State team that last year had not one, but two top 64 picks from the defensive line head into the draft and get taken. 2 top 40 picks. I only said 64 because it's the first 2 rounds. Braden Fisk was drafted in the top half of the second round. Jared Verse was one of the first defensive players taken overall in the draft. They both go to the Rams. This is a team that prides itself on strong offensive linemen, strong defensive linemen, people in the trenches who put your hands on you, get dirty, 3 yards in a cloud of dust football. But they get dominated by Georgia Tech on the inside. So Georgia Tech runs the ball over them. Georgia Tech doesn't allow, they stifle Florida State's offense until late in the game where they finally tie it up. I mean, there was even a point, and this has more to do with coaching, but there was a point, I was watching Florida State's left tackle during the game, and, I played left tackle in high school. I was pretty good at it, pretty good for our county anyways, and I feel like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to playing the position to an extent. But I'm watching their left tackle. I love to watch left tackles during the game because it lets me reminisce on those days. I find it interesting. So Florida State's left tackle on running plays, it's clear as day. He's leaning forward just slightly leaning forward, almost like he's getting in a better stance to head north rather than south for a pass block. He's heading north. Can avoid getting a false step. And he's leaning forward on every run play. And it's like a tell. And then he's leaning back a bit so that he can cover his ass and not get blown by on a pass set. And if it's obvious to me on the broadcast angle, it's sure as hell obvious to the Georgia Tech defensive linemen, their tackles, and also their coaching staff. And it should have been obvious to the Florida State coaching staff. But throughout the game, they don't make an adjustment. He keeps leaning forward. I don't know if the right tackle was doing it too. I don't think it matters quite as much with the right tackle. I would be worried about it with the left tackle for sure. But that's coaching. That is totally, how do you not iron that out before the game? How do you certainly not see it in the game, get in his ear and say, what the fuck are you doing? So Georgia Tech dominates the line of scrimmage. It helps with their win. their coach. If they continue to win games this year, he's going to get a new coaching job somewhere. I'm excited to see where that goes for him. And DJ, I'm going to call him DJ Uyunglele. I might have said that wrong. I'm not here for football ASMR. But DJU continues to disappoint. He's on his third team in 3 years. Last year was with Oregon State. Kind of a good team in the Pac-12. Not on the level of Oregon or Washington, but a competitive team. A team that has their head coach then go to Michigan State, and a program that will fall into irrelevancy probably with the collapse of the Big 12 or the Pac-12. But he's average there. At Clemson, it was embarrassing because they have all these primetime games. He's awful against Georgia to open the season. They lost that game like 10-3 to a Georgia team that dominated the entire year. People forget that Clemson was in that game against a top-ranked Georgia early in the year, and their offense couldn't move the ball. Will Shipley couldn't go anywhere. DJU certainly couldn't go anywhere. And a 5-star recruit, best player out of California that year, which is a hive like Georgia and Texas and Florida for football talent, especially for quarterbacks. C.J. Stroud came out of there. Tom Brady was out of California. Just dudes. He continues to disappoint. He is like the football equivalent of watching paint dry. The guy has no wiggle, no finesse. When he runs the ball, at least Cam Newton, Cam Newton who was like a similar build. Cam Newton's a freak, was 6'5", 250, built like a brick shithouse. That guy would run forward and have a wiggle. He'd be like, woohoo, a little bit of wiggle to him. Nothing with DJU. The guy's got no lateral quickness. He is totally north-south, and even when he gets north, at his first sight of contact, he's going down. And he can't throw the ball that well. He rarely has all of his cleats in the ground when he's throwing the ball. He slides into the pocket very awkwardly. It just doesn't look natural for him. The quarterback position, it looks like he dominated in high school because he's a huge player, but he just doesn't have I don't see the confidence or the quickness or the technical ability at playing quarterback for him to be that successful. So coming back to Florida State, how is Florida State going to get that much better? They're going to win a good amount of games this year because they're in the ACC, and this was a wake-up call. I get that. But how can you expect them to win, be a huge playoff team with that at quarterback? I don't know. I'm just not seeing it. I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying it. And I don't need to see repurposed, repackaged, refurbished DJU for me to be a believer. It's not happening for me. Last thing with Florida State. Florida State fans loved to complain last year after the committee left them out of the college football playoff. Where is the integrity in the committee? Where is the integrity? Talk about integrity? Where was your integrity playing in front of millions of people watching? We've all been waiting for football to come back. We're sick and tired of watching preseason football. We want to see real football. And you guys get the honor, the privilege of playing in Ireland to open the season against Georgia Tech as huge favorites. And that's the performance. Integrity. Yeah, your quarterback got hurt last year. Sorry. I'm sorry you got left out because your quarterback got hurt. I'm so sorry. But we got Michigan, Alabama, and Washington, Texas, 2 of the best games of the year. I wouldn't trade that for anything. For anything. Integrity. Fuck out of here. Okay, so moving on to some NFL stuff. So the NFL cut day was today. Some years I'm into the cut day more than others. Last couple of years, the Texans haven't been that great. They haven't had a great roster, so I'm like, cut everybody. I don't care. But when the Texans are good, I find it interesting seeing who the cuts are going to be. It's like, oh, that guy's a roster dump. This guy just wasn't good enough. This guy fumbled a punt return in preseason, so he just doesn't make the team. Can't have that. Can't risk turnovers in big games. But I was thinking about it, and for some of these rosters that have not only like better players, but less spots available to fill, be careful about getting excited about players that are signed in free agency, that are drafted later, that are undrafted free agents, UDFAs. Because you might spend some time, look, admittedly, I'm a sick puppy. Like I love this shit. I I'll tell you guys a story. So, after the Texans finished their draft, they had drafted two players out of USC. Kalen Bullock, free safety, rangy safety, plays way faster than he ran in Indianapolis at the combine. And Solomon Byrd, a defensive end, 7th round pick. I spent probably 10 hours of my life watching Solomon Tate film. Excuse me. Watching Solomon. Did I call him Solomon Tate? Solomon Byrd out of USC. Solomon Byrd. Defensive end. Power rusher. Spent about 8 to 10 hours of my life watching his film, watching him at the Senior Bowl, where all week at the Senior Bowl, you heard how amazing he was. He was dominating in practice there. I'm like, okay, that's good news. And he has 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl against good talent. There's good players at the Senior Bowl. The Senior Bowl it's not everything, right? But it's something for a player who, versus being a UDFA, is going, gets drafted in the 7th round because the Texans think, well, let's give him a shot. And what I love the most about him is he's a power rusher. He's a big power rusher, which I think when you're going to draft a rusher late, you lean power over finesse. I worry about guys who are super fast coming off the edge. You're taking them late and investing in them. It doesn't translate that well. Because if you don't have moves, like these tackles are so athletic that you being that fast, if they can get their hands on you, it's over. If that's all you have is speed, it's over. You'll be on special teams your entire life. But make a good living doing that. But that's neither here nor there. But Solomon Byrd, really strong, really good feet, great hands, gets in the face of the defensive line of the offensive tackle. If he's lining up at a 3 tag, can get in the face of the guard. He was good. He was good in the run game at USC. And USC's defense, not a great defense last year, admittedly, but he was awesome in the Senior Bowl. So I was thinking, yes, we got Will Hunter, we got Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter. And now we got this guy, Solomon Byrd, who I think could be a rotational piece next to like Derek Barnett. Well, he was one of the very first cuts today. So immediately he was gone. He had been fine in camp in the preseason. But you start investing time in these guys. And, what'll be interesting and kind of beneficial for me, and, this goes back to I'm a sick puppy. I just love consuming football stuff. He may get picked up by somebody, and he may play rotational defensive end for somebody. It'd be pretty good. It'll be bad that the Texans got rid of him, but it'll be cool because I'll have seen it coming, But my point is that be careful getting invested in free agents that you may sign and rookies that you draft because they may not make the team, and chances are a lot of them won't. A lot of them for the 5th round and beyond probably won't. But it's fun to look into them anyway. Other cuts for the Texans, just FYI, like Noah Brown, wide receiver, got cut. Robert Woods got cut. Andrew Beck, their fullback last year, who I thought was pretty good, but I think he's been hurt. Probably not worth paying him. Like, they cut him. And not to say they can't get any of these guys back. They'll go through waivers. And if you don't know how waivers works in the NFL, the worst team gets the first overall pick of the waivers. So 20 teams can put a claim in for Noah Brown. If the Panthers put a claim in for him, they're going to get him because if that's their first overall waiver pick, kind of like in fantasy where you hit the waiver wire. So I guess everybody would get it if they play fantasy. So cut day came and went. And I'm looking for other football content. And I open up the Hard Rock app. And I'm looking at some future bets. looking at division winners, seeing if there's any value. And something came across me that I thought was really fascinating. The Bills and the Jets on the Hard Rock app are now tied to win the division at plus 180. This is a Bills team that I think they've won the division 4 straight years. And all of a sudden the Jets, get healthy Aaron Rodgers, and they won 7 games last year, and now they're co-favorites to win the division. I thought it was crazy. So I'm going to give my rankings for the AFC East, how that's going to end up. And I'm not going to do this based on statistical analysis here. I'm going to call this my coach quarterback combo standings for the AFC East. And that's how I'm going to rank them. And that's how it's going to be for the year. And we'll see if I'm right or not. I think in a lot of instances, the coach and the quarterback are two of the most valuable pieces in all of sports. So, coach, quarterback, the fourth best, the worst in the division is obviously Jacoby Brissett / Drake May and Gerard Mayo. Unfortunately, there's not a lot to say. They're rebuilding. That team's just not winning the division. They're a team that has to play games every week because they happen to be the National Football League, but it's probably the worst roster in the NFL. Although I think they could win like 5-6 games, but that's on the top end. Third for me, this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to say the Jets are going to finish third. I think the Dolphins have a better coach quarterback combo than the Jets. Robert Saleh has not been that proficient at winning in the division this year, or in his career as the Jets coach. I think he's won like 4 division games since he's been there, 4 or 5. That's it in 3 years. That's just not going to cut it. And you may say, oh, they had Zach Wilson. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, what if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt? Tua's gotten hurt in the past, but he had his hip injury in college, and then he's had concussion issues. Where he put the fingers up like Hannibal Buress on the Aaron Andre show. Putting those fingers up like that classic meme. But I trust Mike McDaniel a lot more than I trust Bob Saleh. First off, he's an offensive head coach. I just naturally gravitate towards offensive head coaches. I have a soft spot for DeMeco Ryans, who I think, even though he's a defensive head coach, he's an amazing leader of men. I would go to battle with him. He could talk me into watching paint dry, otherwise known as watching DJU play football. Bob Saleh hasn't really appeared to be that to me. He gets to the podium and he's just like kind of he's stoic up there, at least. But the Aaron Rodgers thing came up and he's like, I don't know, I have no idea. Mike McDaniel is just cool, calm, collected, offensive head coach, good, brilliant mind, and the players like him a lot. So in my rankings, I got the Jets going third because I think the coach quarterback combo is just better in Miami. I'm not putting any stats to that. That's not the point of this. And with that said, with that logic, Sean McDermott and Josh Allen are a top 5 coach quarterback combo in the league and will win the AFC East again. I know they've lost a lot of pieces. I know Stephon Diggs is in Houston. Gabe Davis is elsewhere. Their top targets are Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman. On defense, Milano is now hurt. They lost Leonard Floyd. Von Miller isn't what he used to be. Tre'Davious White is gone. Their safeties are maybe Micah Hyde is there, but I think both their safeties are gone. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. One of those might be there, but I digress. When it comes to defense in the NFL, I'm much more scheme than I am personnel. Because the league is so slanted to offensive teams that, I'll give you an example. Last year, the Texans finished second best in the league in rushing yards per attempt allowed. That should not happen. That is not because Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins rejuvenated their career and are both top 8 nose tackles. Not, no thanks. I like Blake Cashman as a linebacker. He's not the reason why they were top 2 in the league in rush defense. It's scheming. It's coaching. Because obviously, they have no reason to be there. They do not have the personnel to be there. But they were as soon as D'Amico Ryans comes in first year implementation of his defense. So even with the lost pieces in Buffalo, Sean McDermott, who's proven to be a top defensive coach. Now, look, they haven't won a lot of playoff games, but that's not what we're talking about. He's been an elite defensive coach for, 7, 8 years? Give me that on defense, despite their personnel losses. And then Josh Allen speaks for himself. A lot of turnovers, sure. But in the second half of the year last year, you could make a strong case that he was the MVP of the league. I mean, he led them all the way back to the division title, led the league in touchdowns. Lamar's team and Lamar himself played well late and got the 1 seed. And I'm not taking that away from Lamar, but Josh Allen is he's a top 3 quarterback in the league. And I think people would say, if you're saying Burrow, it's more projection. But Allen just doesn't get hurt. He's consistent. Yeah, I think it's the best combo in the AFC East. So that's what I'm saying. Bills, Dolphins, Jets, Patriots. That's my rankings based on coach quarterback. I'm sticking to it. Lock it in. Okay. Last 2 things here. So similarly with ranking based on coach quarterback situation, I wanted to rank the top 3 situations for rookie quarterbacks. When you have 6 rookie quarterbacks taken in the top 12, it's not all going to be talent. And it never is. A lot of these quarterbacks bust. They're just not, they're not put in a good situation. There's bad ownership. They play too early. They're just not ready for the NFL stage, and it will swallow you whole if you don't have the piece to the puzzle pretty early at the quarterback position. So I wanted to take the top 3 rookie quarterback situations. I'm going to leave JJ McCarthy out of it, though he might crack the top 3. He might be number 3 for me. Just based on great offensive head coach, potentially the best wide receiver in the league, top 2, and he's probably not 2. Another year of drafting, plays in a dome. Divisional games are mostly in domes. Well, that's not true. The Lions play twice in domes, but the Bears are trying to build a new stadium. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. He would probably be my 3rd, but I'm going to leave him out of it. 3rd best quarterback situation for a rookie. It's Jane Daniels, right? I'm not super high on Washington. I don't think it's a hot take or anything. I like some of their offensive pieces. I don't know if they're going to run the ball that well. I think that's going to hurt Jane Daniels. I think he's actually going to be a lot of the running attack. Cliff Kingsbury is there, which we've seen that with Kyler. We've seen him go to the playoffs with Kyler, but we haven't seen much more than that. The guy left and went to Thailand or something last year, so maybe he's reborn, reborn with some ladyboys. But he's got decent wide receivers. Terry McLaurin. They just actually traded away Jahan Dotson, but I think that's because they really like some of the guys out of their draft class and out of training camp at the wide receiver position. They think are going to step up. And Jane Daniels being a bit of an older quarterback, similarly to the guy who's going to be second on this list, being an older quarterback is going to help Matt a lot. It's going to be great for him. He's seen a lot. He's not going to be too frazzled. He's got a great deep ball. Beautiful. Russell Wilson in his prime kind of deep ball where it leaves the screen almost. Their defense isn't going to be terrific. Although Dan Quinn's going to help, just him being there. And then I would also say his offensive line probably won't be very good either. I can't really name much of their offensive line just off the top of my head. And, I'm pretty good with offensive linemen in general. So that's, like Sam Cosmi, right? Something like that. At right guard, that's about it. Tyler Biadasz, maybe. Anyway, he's my number 3 for me. Number 2 is Bo Nix. And this is strictly the coach quarterback situation here. Sean Payton has dealt with quarterbacks before who have had great short to intermediate passing game, not the most dynamic throwing arm of all time. Smart, very cerebral quarterbacks, older quarterbacks, which Drew Brees was when he left, as he left the Chargers and went to the Saints. Drew Brees didn't always have the best weapons either. But you make the weapons with the offense. You help do that. You help facilitate that through the offensive scheme, through coaching, through play calling, through spacing. So Bo Nix has a great offensive mind at his disposal who's had a quarterback in Drew Brees who's very similar to Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix is a bit more mobile than Drew Brees was, although Drew Brees could wiggle, dude. I'll tell you. But Bo Nix is more mobile. He probably has a slightly better arm, but it's close. It's close. I mean, people are out here saying, "Oh, Bo Nix has a better arm than you think." It's like, well, when you say that, you're kind of hiding something from me. You're being a little bit insecure. Nobody's ever said Justin Herbert has a better arm than you think. No, they say he has a fucking cannon. You just come out and say it. And then number 1 has got to be Caleb Williams. This has got to be the best rookie quarterback situation of all time. I can't think of a better one. That trade between the Panthers and the Bears that allowed them to get DJ Moore and Caleb Williams out of it, that's got to be one of the biggest fleecings of all time. Maybe the biggest. I haven't brushed up on my fleecings, but it's probably number 1. You've got DJ Moore. You've got Keenan Allen, who I kind of think Keenan Allen's going to have an off year. I don't know. I've got like a sixth sense about it. I could just feel like a disturbance in the force. I feel like he's going to get hurt or the wheels are going to fall off a little bit. But then he's got Rome Odunze. I love that instead of going like pass rusher, instead of going like Dallas Turner or Jared Verse or Latu Latu, who I think Latu's going to be an awesome. I mean, he might be. I have a small wager on him to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's more of a hedge against him being amazing for the Colts in his rookie year, but I digress. I love that they went out for Rome Odunze and gave another weapon to their franchise quarterback. They didn't give a lot of help weapons-wise to Justin Fields beyond DJ Moore, but they're learning from that mistake. They're leading into Caleb Williams. I mean, Chicago has a chance to have a star quarterback in year 1. The last star quarterback they had, I mean, if you can even count Jay Cutler as a star, Sid Luckman, who I was thinking about it earlier. That's one guy who I'm assuming he's in the Hall of Fame. That's one guy I'm surprised I didn't guess on that Sportle quiz yesterday. Was Sid Luckman, instead of like Bobby Lane. I feel like Sid Luckman would be around that spot, but anyway. So that's the rankings. Even though what's interesting is 2 of the 3 have defensive head coaches as quarterback for quarterbacks, but I don't know, man. Most of these guys have defensive head coaches for these quarterbacks coming in. I don't know. Maybe I'd move. I really think Bo Nix could have an amazing rookie year. I really do. But we'll have to see. I just like Sean Payton so much as a coach. All right. Last thing here. I have 1 second-year breakout star. Somebody that I'm so strong about. You should draft him in your drafts if you have a chance. I think he's primed for a huge year. Remember a trivia question from earlier. Who averaged the least amount of possession time last year as a team? The answer is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks last year averaged 26 minutes of time possession. That is 2 minutes less than New England. Who you probably couldn't pay New England to put their offense back on the field. Nobody wants to see Mac Jones. Nobody wants to see Mac Jones on the field. Not even Mac Jones. But they had 26 minutes of offense per game. Imagine if they could flip that. Just imagine if they had, the top of the league had 32 in Cleveland. Imagine if they were at 29 or 30. Imagine if they just got to like top 12 and got 4 more minutes per game on offense. 17 times 4. That's what, 68? 68 more minutes of offense per year. Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to benefit from that so much. And I think the coaching change from Pete Carroll to Mike McDonald is going to be a driving force in it. I think Mike McDonald realizes the importance of a high-flying offense. Even though he was in Baltimore, he was in Michigan, and saw them running the ball, I think he knows that this offense, with 2 big wide receivers, hopefully, with DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now, they do have Tyler Lockett. I'll get to that in a second. But I think he realizes that increased time of possession is going to help them out a ton. He doesn't want his defense staying on the field. It's like Pete Carroll was like getting off at like seeing his defense on the field more and more. No, get your defense on the field, get the offense on. Let's get 68 more minutes of time possession this year for that offense for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Here's a couple of things. Jackson Smith-Njigba last year had 10 yards per catch. That is pretty good for a guy who kind of played the role of a possession receiver last year. He had a couple deep grabs, but DK Metcalf is an all-around receiver. Tyler Lockett was your deep threat down the sideline, and then your possession guy at number 3, it seems, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Can we flip this around, please, Seattle? Can we? We know the answer. DK Metcalf is a stud. He's your number 1. He's your go-to. You can do anything you want with him. But then Jackson Smith-Njigba is your number 2? Are you kidding me? The guy comes from wide receiver U, or if you want to debate, whether it's LSU or OSU, have it. Don't care. But we got Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Noah Brown, shout out, cut today. Don't care. We've got Ohio State guys running across the NFL at receiver. Give my boy Smith-Njigba some run here. The guy had 66 catches last year, little over 90 targets. That's just not good enough. That's not going to cut it. That's going to increase. You're going to get value here by drafting a guy who I think is going to have between 900 to 1,050 yards this year. He's going to be right on the cusp of 1,000 yards. Probably around 120 to 125 targets. They invested a first-round pick in this guy. And this is one of those situations where you never hope that somebody gets injured. But if Tyler Lockett gets injured, I'll be like, oh no. Well, at least we get to see more Jackson Smith-Njigba. Will be my response. So, only had 3 touchdowns last year. Bump it up to 7. Can we get like 7 touchdowns out of him? So, 68 more. A couple things I want to see. I want to see 68 more minutes of offense per game, over the course of the year for Seattle. I don't think it's that hard to do. All they got to do is be top half of the league in offensive possession, and they're going to do that. Let's make sure Jackson Smith-Njigba is the number 2 receiver. You invested a first-round pick in him, and we've seen second-year rookies take off. It happens all the time. Isaac Bruce did it in the 90s. Victor Cruz did it as an undrafted guy. Juju Smith-Schuster did it with the Steelers. Shout out Connor. Jalen Waddle did it. So I'm not asking for the world here, although I wouldn't mind it, and I probably deserve it. I'm just asking, can we flip the script a little bit? Just a little bit. And if we do enough, we've got one of the most talented second-year guys here in Smith-Njigba from wide receiver U. So if you're smart, if you believe in second-round wide receivers, and if you believe in me, which is probably on the lowest on the totem pole, but let's give it a try, Jackson Smith-Njigba is your second-year breakout star. Lock it in. All right. So that's about it for me. Kept it kind of short and sweet. 35 minutes today. Yeah, probably going to drop another Sporkle quiz in the coming days. Record some pod before the weekend of college football. I've got a Texans pod coming up. I was waiting for the cuts today, but I'll probably do a good 25 to 30 minutes on Texans hype. So if you're interested in that, look out for that. And with that said, keep on trucking, guys. Keep on working hard. Keep on doing great things out there. And I will talk to you soon. Peace.